Hello, welcome. I'm Zaza, the inappropriate quilter. I hope you can all see me fine today. I'm just noticing that this sun is hitting this camera here. This one, this. So I'm going to just try and pull the blind down. And it's still hitting it. I'm just going to have to have rainbows today. I'm sorry, I can't get that to go away. So, who's here today? We've got Sherry was in. You were really early. You were 35 minutes early, Sherry. Hi, welcome. Hi, Melanie. Hi, Steffi. Hi, Deb. Hi, Joe. Hi, Nanita. Hi, Brian. Hi, Nikki. And you're all saying hello to each other. Hi, Joyty. Hi, Jessica. You doing the school run this morning? Are you on your way to work, Jessica? Hi, Brenda. Hi, 3 Patches of Time. And I've forgotten your name. I'm really sorry. You'll need to remind me. And that's me caught up. Oh, I'm sorry he's got toothache, Melanie. That's horrible. Right, today we're finishing off. I'm going to start doing Christmas stuff. The dreaded C word on Saturday. So this is going to be my last week just now of doing scrappy stuff. I haven't finished this yet. Stuck the hearts down on Saturday and I haven't blanket stitched around them. But then I started playing with buttons and I quite like buttons on things. So I'm going to sew the buttons on like this. I can't hold it up because they're not on yet. They'll all fall off, but I quite like that. Turn it that way, you'll maybe see it better with the buttons on it. I like buttons on things. So I'll do the blanket stitch around it and sew the buttons on. Hi, Dawn. Good to see you. Joyty's going to send me an email later. So today I'm going to try, because it's out the top of my head. So this is not a tried and tested pattern. This is just something that I thought it should work and I'd give it a go. Is a hexagonal, like a little dish, made from these fabric scraps, the ones that I did that were kind of in a hexagon anyway. So I've trimmed it down. So there's 1/2 inch was as far as I could get to the edge of the fabric and have all the points still in it. Any more than that, and I wasn't going to get the points on these 2 sides. So it's 1/2 inch, and I've got backing fabric, and I've got a hair. There's here a shed here. I should be bald the amount of hair I shed. And some quite thick, heavyweight interfacing. You can see it's quite stiff. I'm going to stick that on the back, but it's 1/4 inch smaller than the hexagons. So when I sew my 1/4 inch seam allowance, this shouldn't actually be in the seam allowance, which should make it easier for turning. Hi, Christina. Welcome. Hi, Adam. I've got somebody else from my side of the pond. Yay. Well, no, that's not true, actually, because Steffi's from here. She's from Germany, I think I saw. So there's 3 of us from this side of the pond. Hi, Loretta. So the iron is on, but it's not hot. Does anybody else do that? Does anybody else touch their iron to see if it's hot? Or is that just a me thing? You know, if I get so close and I don't feel any heat coming off it, I just keep getting closer. I had switched it on, but with this new Mini, so you have to press the button on the top as well. Whereas the other one, you just switched it on at the plug and that was it on. And I did, because this isn't an exact hexagon, I did write on it in heat erasable pen, a little T for top on the front, the back, and the interfacing, so that I could get the sides to line up. Because it's not quite, I was going to say square, but you know what I mean. It's not quite a perfect hexagon. So you do it as well. And Deb does it, Nikki does it. Brian hovers over it first. Well, see, I did that. I put my hand like this and there was no heat coming off it. So I just kept getting closer. And see, there's heat. I can feel heat there now. But there was no heat the last time. So I just kept getting closer. But yeah, I don't go straight for the hot iron. I do the hover first, Brian. So this interfacing is fusible. But because it's thick, it takes a minute. Joy, do you sound like me? Device is dying. So this is just, as I say, this is just out my head. It should work, but it might not. So we'll see. Yeah, they did used to spit on irons, which is disgusting when you think about it. And the T will disappear because I'm going to iron over it because I did it with a heat erasable pen. So once it's on that side, I'm going to turn it over and give this side a good press. And then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch right round the edges, leaving one side open. And I hope I remember to leave one side open because I quite often forget that, get carried away. And that's not quite stuck down right there. But because this is so thick, if I did it the full size, it wouldn't want to turn, and then the seams wouldn't want to sit flat. So that's why I trimmed it down a little bit. That was a tip I got from Minky Kim. She does that in a lot of the bags and things that she makes. She makes the interfacing just slightly smaller. Or sometimes she makes it the same size and trims it back down. But the last time I did that, I snipped the front fabric, so I'm not doing that again. And I'm going to try and iron this out. And I bet you I've ironed the T off the front of this. Yep. So now I'll have to try and match these up, because as I say, oh, did that match up? Yeah, that did. Oh, well, that's a miracle. There you go. It did match up. Because I'm thinking there's one side that's a little bit shorter, and some of the angles aren't quite just 100%. So if you get seasick, travels motion sick, whatever, shut your eyes now. 3, 2, 1, we're moving to the sewing machine. There, how's that? Can you see that okay? Yeah. Right. I need to change my foot. I'm going to put on the 1/4 inch foot. And I'm going to just go right round the edge on this. I'm going to start here because I like the corners to be stitched, even if it's just a little bit. Lining this up. and pivot. I'm going to lift that up actually and go back a little bit. There. So I'm just kind of catching the edge of the interfacing and no more on some bits. I see that's gone skew-iff already. You see that? It's gone out of alignment. Yeah. I probably should have had it clipped. And we're just going to go all the way around. Pivot again. There we go, line it up. That's the first one there, right? Before I go too far, and stitch right round. So it's the last one coming up, and I'm just going to go round the corner a little bit because it makes it easier when you're turning something if you've gone round the corner. Well, I think so. And I'm just going to back stitch there and stop. And because I didn't back stitch at this side, I'm going to do it now. Otherwise the stitching will come apart when I... Right, so I've gone all the way around and I've got the opening. Now, when I'm turning an opening, I like to press this back before I turn it. It just makes it easier when you do turn it to get everything to sit nicely. Hi, Pat. So this morning we've got a few people with channels in. We've got Joe from Vintage Style by Joe. We've got Sherry from My Quilting World. And we've got Adam from Adam Sews. Who else is here? Nikki has a channel, but that she just tends to do sort of updates and things. We've got Deb, the Pug Mama Quilter. She's got a channel. So it's all going this morning. Right, these are quite short. I'm going to just... Right, so now I'm going to go for it and try and turn this and see and hope that this doesn't ping off. Because see, it's quite stiff. I want to get it through. Good morning, Joyce. Ugh, this doesn't want to turn, even though it's quite a big hole. Because this stuff is stiff. It's really stiff. I'm going to have to try and go right to this edge. It might not work just because of how stiff this is. I might have to take it off and use slightly softer interfacing. But we'll see. We'll hopefully get there. Fight with it. I'll do it here so you can see what I'm doing. That would help, wouldn't it? And it should just... See, that's why I wanted to reinforce the stop and the start, because I'm probably going to pop those seams anyway. And this is going to need a really, really, really good press. But it is stiff. But because it's going to be a dish, I want it to have a bit of stiffness and a bit of body. I probably should have used the Pellon because it's more like felt rather than this. But there. Now I just need a thingy-bob. This is a clover tool. I'm going to turn the iron. Oh no, I'm going to leave that camera just now where it is. Clover turner, and it's quite good because it's got the silicone tip. You can use that for ironing things. It won't melt. So we're just going to pop the seams. Oh no, I'm not going to pop the seams. I'm going to roll the seams back out. I don't want to pop the seams. And I've done that a few times. That's my party trick. Usually when I'm turning things, I get a bit carried away, press too hard. Usually when I'm using something sharp and pointy that I know I shouldn't be using. We'll get there. Might just take a little bit of finagling or finagling. But this was also why I didn't want this interfacing to go over the... I need to lay it down here till I press it. I didn't want the interfacing to go into the seam allowance because that would have just been hellish. Pop the last two corners, push them out. And I'm going to give this a press. And then I'm going to top stitch all the way around. So I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see me press it. There's no point you looking at the sewing machine when you can't see anything. The sun's gone away, so I can move this round a bit. And I'm going to turn this now so you can see me press it. I'm going to have to poke those bits in a bit. It's amazing what a bit of a press does to things. See, that seam started to go a bit, so this is why you need the top stitching as well to hold everything in place. And I'm almost tempted to do a decorative stitch as the top stitching. I don't know. What do you think? Hi, Flicky Chicky. You took the entire pack out for a walk. They're either really, really well behaved or you're really, really brave. Mind you, usually when you've got a pack of dogs, they'll stick together. They don't. So if you've got a couple of older ones that do what they're told, the younger ones tend to fall in line. There's that seam's needing adjusted a bit. Give it a poke. Try not to poke it through. Yeah, that's a bit better. So we've got that at the moment. I'm going to go all the way around. Hi, Linda. Irish Sail Lady. Does anybody have any questions while I'm looking at the camera? Yeah, scent hounds do tend to stay together, but the only problem with scent hounds is when they get a scent, off they go. And you can't really blame them. It's like basset hounds end up getting rehomed because people can't deal with them. But it's generations of training to get the dog to follow a scent and ignore everything else. And everything else includes the human that's shouting on it. From the other end of the beach. My last basset, Lily, was quite happy. She would stay beside you. But if Hugo got a good smell, his nose went down, the tail went up, and his ears switched off. And that was him. And you just had to hope to hell that you could run faster than him. Because whatever smell he found appealing, he just kept going until he found it. Right, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put a bit of glue on it. And my small glue sticks are all in the living room. What am I making, Joyty? I am making a hexagonal shaped little dish, like a trinket tray thing, that you could put your clips in or your... So just put a bit of glue along that seam. Put your clips in or put... jewellery or your... God, my brain's just gone blank. I've just had a big brain fart. Sewing machine presser feet, that's the word I was looking for. So because I've glued that, I'm just going to give it a press with the iron to dry the glue. And then I'm going to sew around the edge. And as I say, I'm quite tempted to do like a blanket stitch around the edge. But maybe I should just secure it first. Will I do a blanket? No, I think I will. I'll give it a go. The worst that happens is I have to unpick it and take it back out. So change the foot back over. I'm going to change my thread and use the decorative thread that I did for top stitching. I'm going to turn you back round. So in 3, 2, 1. There, how's that? Oh, Nikki says Leo is hard to get off a scent, and you have to remind him he's a herding dog, not a bloodhound. There's always one that behaves and one that doesn't, though, Nikki, when you have a pair of them, isn't there? There's never two that are just well behaved. Hi, Mona, good morning. There's always one that does what you want, another one that just suits themselves. Well, I found that in my experience. So threads, this is the one. I could use a lighter one, but this is the one I used that way for these fabrics. So this is the one I'm going to stick with. And it's quite a thick weight. I'm sure it's a 12 weight. So it'll be quite nice for a decorative top stitch. And I'm going to be good. I'm going to snip the thread in my machine. I'm not going to pull it back through my machine. Sometimes I forget, bad habits and all that. Lift the presser foot, that would help. There we go. I try to have good habits, but I'm not always successful. I'm going to put the wee hoochie on. I pressed the thread cutter there in case you're wondering what happened. This machine's supposed to have an excellent needle threader, and I've never managed to get it to work. And I know it's user error, and it's my fault I'm not doing it properly. And this thread's quite hard to get to go through because it's thick. And maybe if I open my mouth and stick my tongue out, it'll work better. You know what I'm going to do? You know, I'm going to shout, no, I'm going to lick the end of the thread, but then I'm going to cut it off. So it's all right. There we go. I don't know if you saw that or not on camera, but I did it. I licked the thread. There's the licked bit going in the bucket. Oh, and now my nose is running. Oh. That's exactly right, Flicky Chicky. Do as I say, not as I do. With pack, you have to be in charge. They have to know. Dogs like to know who's boss. They are naturally pack animals, and they want to. They prefer it when they know somebody takes charge. Like what I'm going to do with this, before I actually sew it, is I'm going to get a scrap of fabric out of a scrap fabric box, and I'm going to test the stitch. So that I know what it looks like before I start. Because I usually prefer, I just need a little bit, yeah, that'll do, to get it right. Sherry, you got your needle threader. Was Sherry that said that? I think the chat just goes away. Joy, do you know I didn't make the thread stand? Norman made it for me. We saw one in a shop somewhere, and it was £35, and it was exactly the same as this. And I said, that's just a couple of big spools and some discs of wood. I said, you could make me one of them. I'm very good at volunteering him to make things like that. So he did. He went away to the garage and he put dowels in for the thread. He made me measure how many spools of thread, and they're the sort of fattest ones. These ones here are the fattest ones I use. So, and I've got it actually, it sits on the shelf on a little turntable, so it does spin, but it's not attached to the turntable. So yes, that's for all my decorative threads, that for top stitching and things. Yeah, so Sherry said, you got your needle threader replaced and the thread cutter adjusted and you love it. The thread cutter works fine, it's just the needle, and I'm pretty sure it's user error. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining. You'll be lurking at work. Yeah, Flicky Chicky's dogs are very well behaved. She's does rescue work with her dogs. So we'll have a wee look and see what this stitch is like. And that's come out there. I think I might make it a bit bigger. And I think I've just gone the wrong way on the bigger. Right, we'll try that. This is why I fiddle about with it first. I'll show you the stitches in a minute. That was the first one when it started, and it's really small and tight. And then I think I'm going to go with this one that's a little bit bigger at this end. And we'll just see how we get on. We're going to go back all the way around again. So at the moment I've got a coaster. And then in a few minutes, we should hopefully have a trinket tray. Need one more. So because it's not an over edge stitch, I'm just catching the very edge of the fabric. I'll hold it up to the camera in a minute and let you see it. I'm not going over the edge. I am actually catching the edge with the stitch. I'm going to do one there. Don't know if you can see the stitches on the camera from there or not. When I've got this done, I'll have another look at the chat, see if you have any questions. So this kind of idea for doing this kind of thing I got from, as I said, Rain Vermont, who's a YouTube channel. She does fabulous stuff. And the other person that does kind of things like this that I like is Jeri Bellini. She does really good things. A bit different, not your traditional. That's going off the edge. And she does things that are a bit different, and both of their YouTube channels are in the description if you want to click on that, if you want to check them out. Great for a bit of inspiration. We're more than halfway there. We're on about 60% at the moment. And then we'll turn this into something that's 3D. I'm going to give that a pivot on angle and one more stitch, maybe two. I think that's a bit nicer around the edge than just a plain straight stitch. Although I think if I was going to do the straight stitch, I still would have done it with this thread, this thicker thread to match in, than doing it with just the plain white thread that I used when I was going around the edges. So if anybody has any questions, if they want to ask me. What's the temperature like now? Because you've all been having snow and things. I'm quite jealous. We hardly ever get any snow. We're too close to the sea. Yesterday was miserable weather. It was cold, it was grey, and it was pouring with rain all day. The only saving grace was it wasn't windy, because I hate it when it's wet and windy. So here we are coming up to the last bit. We're on the last leg, home stretch. And then that's just a locking stitch, that one. And I'll snip these threads. I don't know what the back looks like. I'll have to have a look and see. Because you will see that actually. Oh, look, it's just got the white because the white blanket stitch, which looks all right on the back. Because I didn't put the thick thread in the bobbin, I just kept plain white in the bobbin. I've got some threads there. This is from the side when I turned it and pulled at the seam a bit. So that's what we've got now. Now what I'm going to try and do is fold this on each seam and just do a little 1/2 inch stitch down each seam. And then that should hold it. And we'll go along and do another seam. So you want to come in maybe 1/2 inch from the edge and just stitch down. And then go to the next one. This is in my head, this is how I would do it. So I don't know if this will work. Then go to the next one and go 1/2 inch in or whatever and go straight down. So I'm going to mark this and we'll see if it works. So I'm going to turn the camera around. Good morning, Mary. Oh, you're all skew with. There we go. That's better. So as I say, I don't know if this will work. I've not tried it before. You're all being guinea pigs with me. But I will need to mark it with a pen, and I'll make sure that it is the usable one. Morning, Giovanna. Well, you're afternoon now. Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Mary. Hi, Cindy. I hope I've not missed anybody. Mona says it's still cold in Ohio. Everybody's saying good morning to everybody. Yeah, it's 2:39 for you. Because you're an hour ahead of me. So I don't think I want to go 1 inch this way. I have to fold it this way. Along from the seam. I think that's too much. I think maybe 3/4 of an inch along from the seam. I'm going to put a mark and sew straight down, parallel to the seam. This is my thinking. I think that's too much actually. I'm going to go in a bit by a 1/4 inch. Is it too much? That's quite a lot. If I go, it means that the seam's a bit, the lip, yeah, that's too much. I'm not doing that. If I go in a 1/4 of an inch, it's about an inch that I'm sewing down on each seam. And then we'll go to the next one and fold it. And it's going to be an inch as well. And as I say, I don't know if this will work. In my head, it will work. So we shall see. So I'm just going to draw that line. And that's going to be my stitch line. Just going to measure that. Sorry, the camera's on the wrong side, so you guys can't see it. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring an inch down and drawing the line, and that's going to be the line I stitch on. So if I do it that way, you'll see it. So I'm lining that up where it's an inch. So that's where I'm marking. Then we're back to the beginning. And I have to remember I'm sewing the right one on this side, not because I moved it. And just lining it up with the top. And I'm going to check that last one because I'm not sure I had that lined up straight. It's easier to check it than it is to unpick it. Yes, it is lined up straight. So I'm going to do this one first before I forget which seam I'm supposed to be sewing. And we'll see if it can actually stitch through all of this. Remember, put it back to an ordinary stitch on the sewing machine. And I will move the camera back round for you. And I'm going to have a big stitch length because I'm going through lots of layers and it's thick and heavy. And I'm going to have that back from the edge a little bit. And I'm going to sew down to the bottom. And then I'm going to flip it round and go back up to the top. I'm going to move this camera. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Can you see? Getting a bit closer. How's that? So I'm not right at the edge. I'm not going to start stitching right at the edge. I am going to do a locking stitch though. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. Did I come off the edge? I think I did. And then I just pivot, rather than back stitching, I just pivot it back round. Always done that. And I'll come off the end there. I know I've come off the end, so I'm going to go back. And cut the threads. And we'll see if that does the job or not. Yeah, so that's going to give me a bit like that. So if I do one every seam, I'm going to have this bit here. It is going to stick out a little bit. I could have had that on the inside, but I don't mind it on. I think I'd rather have it on the outside. So move on to the next one. And just put it, it's getting it squished enough that I can get it in, because it is quite thick. Right, I'm going to do a locking stitch again. I'm going to slow it down because bigger stitches go faster. And that's me at the edge already. I'm going to lift the foot. I was stitching that with the foot still up. Don't know why. Obviously because of the thickness, it didn't shout at me. Normally it would beep at me for that. And I'm just going to do another locking stitch there. So I'm hoping that you can all see this all right. So now it's 39. It's probably about that, you know, it's probably in the 40s here actually. I'm just going to snip that. I don't think it's as cold as 39 here. I'm going to pick that thread out because it got caught round the back. I'm just going to snip it off and then pull it. I'll get that with tweezers later. Right, and the next one, and it's trying to line the edges up straight, like that, so that you get a good position, a good press down with my finger. I probably should have used the pearl on. It would have been easier to sew, I think. As they say, oh, see, it's quite thick. I'm going to lift this up a bit more. As they say, we live and learn. Right, locking stitch. And it come out from there. Now, there we go. 3 down, 3 to go. So far it's looking like, it'll look like this when it's pressed. So it is going to make a dish. It is going to work. Wasn't completely crazy in my thought process. Which way will I go this way? I'm going to lift that up a bit higher, pop it down, lower it, locking stitch. I'm going to pivot and oh, see, didn't like that. That was a bit too thick there. Did you hear it complain? And my needle has just come unthreaded. So it'll be fun and games to get this back in. Can she do it without licking the thread? Probably not. No. Here we go. Snip that end off. Put it back under the foot. Got the next one folded, lined up. Lift the presser foot up a bit. Did you know that most machines have a lever at the back that if you lift it up, your presser foot goes higher than it normally does? I'm going to pivot and then walk round. And a locking stitch. A thread cutter doesn't like that thicker thread. Right, we're all the way back round. We've got on to the last one, so we'll see how this goes. But yes, I would definitely, if I was going to do this again, I would use the Pellon, which is more like a felt or a thinner interfacing. I wouldn't use this interfacing. A bit close to the edge there. But these are all things that we live and learn, isn't it? Right, so this needs to be pressed, and that's what we're going to end up with. There's a little dish like that, little fabric dish. I'm going to give the edges a good press. I need to get rid of the pen marks anyway. I'm going to turn the camera back round to the ironing board. So 3, 2, 1. We're back round here. Hi, Shalom. So I'm going to just give the top a bit of a press because it's been folded. And then I'm going to fold these like that and press them, each one. And I'll get that edge of that iron in there to get rid of the heat erasable pen. There we go. But it's come out surprisingly well. Considering I didn't have a proper pattern. I had an idea this would work. I've probably seen it somewhere, but I can't think where. So I can't give anybody credit. But in my head, this was going to work. But just because I think something's going to work doesn't always mean it will. So there we go. There's a little hexagon dish. I think what I'm going to do is fold these to one side. Maybe. I might just leave them open. You could technically just press them flat, just leave them as little loops. But yeah, that's... Yeah, the D&D dice things, I've seen them, but I've never seen how to make them. That's right, Shalom, because my son plays D&D and he's got trays for them, but I just thought it was quite... I thought the diamonds were the right kind of pattern for doing a hexagon shape. And that'll be quite good. I can keep my clips in it. Okay, It's quite a good wee shallow dish. I've just couched my clips in the drawer. My big giant clip. Or you could keep, I don't know, whatever you're working on. Buttons, presser feet. You could keep a lot of stuff in it. Or even just jewellery, rings or whatever. But I think the biggest mistake I made there was that the interfacing I used was too thick and too heavy. Brian, that's a good idea. You could stitch buttons on the tabs. You're going to be hard pushed to stitch much through this interfacing, I will say, by hand. So I would probably, as I say, use the Pellon, because the Pellon's more, or even maybe batting, but Pellon's more like felt, whereas this stuff is almost like card. But you saw how I did it. It wasn't hard. Hello, Millie. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Hi, Danielle. So it's not rocket science, but it's just a pretty little dish. And that could go if you were, there's a thread, doing sewing gifts for some, making things for somebody that sews. That would be quite nice with a pin cushion and some fancy pins and a needle book. And you could even do a scissor keeper. I've got a pattern that I made for them as well. So you could do, a few little things. I think I'm going to have to put something heavy on that, like that just now. Try and give it a good press so it stays flatter. Yeah, that's better. There we go. That's it there. Yeah, I've seen the bowls made, but I've not seen somebody make them. But I've seen other shapes being made, so I reckoned it was probably just similar. I'm sure if you put in hexagon bowl or something, because it is basically the same as doing, the bowl cozies, but it's a smaller amount you're going up the sides. So yeah, just something to do with that, those scraps. And the blanket stitch is giving it a nice little decorative finish around the top rather than just plain edging or just a plain stitch. Oh, Mary, that's early for you. You must be on the West Coast. Millie's from Illinois. And I don't think anybody has any questions that I've seen. You're all just talking about how cold it is. Shalom, how dare I stream at 5 a.m? It's not 5 a.m. here, it's 1 p.m. here. I was still up at 5 a.m. this morning, so I probably could have streamed at 5 a.m. You could watch the replay, I wouldn't be offended. You've got a good excuse. Nikki was working on a quilt with a bazillion flying geese. Oh, Nikki, that's so unfair. 80 degrees would be lovely. Absolutely gorgeous. We very rarely even get 80 degrees in the summer. Yeah, the only thing further west than Shalom and the continental part of America, not the USA, but continental America, is probably a bit of Alaska and Hawaii. That's right, Rita. It would make a cute candy dish or a snack dish. Yours has got snaps on the corner. Yes, the one that Christopher's got, Shalom, has got snaps on the corner. Studs that you clip it so it can lie flat. And somebody's, hi Donna Dixon, sorry, I didn't see you come in. But I think probably you could do felt actually on the back and just use heat and bond or something and do the edging stitch to the felt. And just do an edging stitch round, and that would stitch up quite nicely with felt. Brian's thinking to put a pin cushion in the centre and then wonder clips all around it now. Now you've got another project on your list. You do, Brian. Rita, it's never cold in Arizona. It's always roasting. 6 a.m. and it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Brian's full of great ideas. Watch what Brian says, because Brian always comes up with great ideas. Yeah, Nikki, because you wouldn't want to come in the winter because it's damp and cold and bloody miserable. And dark. Flicky Chicky's going to get to 76 if it stays winter cool or cranks back up to the 90s. You're all making me sick with your hot temperatures. It's freezing here. Absolutely freezing. It's cold in northern Arizona. Yes, with the big, but that's up in the mountains. It's not down at normal level. So that's 1 o'clock. Yes, it could be used as a thread catcher when your hand's sewing, or just somewhere to put your spools or your reels of thread so that they don't roll away. Because how many times have we done that and your hand sewn and your thread rolls off the couch, and then you've got to try and find it and hope that it hasn't unravelled. So yes, that's today's project. We did a little thing. And I've got this to finish to get the buttons stitched on. You know that I have a love relationship with buttons. Now, what did Joyty say? She said, you know why I said that? But I didn't see what she said. She said, hi, owe me a Coke, Giovanna. Joyty says, owe me a Coke. Like I would say jinx when somebody says the same thing, I think. '50s uncivilized. '50s is warm, flicky chicky. It's just that you're not acclimatized to it. Well, no, that's not true. '50s not warm. It's just not freezing. There's a difference. I think I'd have a coat on in the '50s too. To be fair, I probably should have been born somewhere tropical. I'm not very good in the cold. So I'm going to say thank you all for coming. Giovanna, I will never say no to buttons. I always like buttons. I've got my big jar of buttons. When I'm out, if I see any buttons, I'm always buying buttons. Nice ones, ceramic ones and wooden ones and things. So, you owe Joyty 2 or 3 Cokes on Sunday. Is that from yesterday, Brian, when you were on John's? Did she get you? Right, anyway, enough chit-chat. I'm going to go and let you all go and have a nice morning, and I'm going to go and have some lunch. Okay, it's good to see you all. Thanks for joining me, and make someone's day be appropriately inappropriate. Okay, bye.